Hello, and welcome back to Beyond Insights, the podcast that takes you inside the worlds of business, accounting, and tech. In today's episode, we're stepping outside of the traditional boardroom and into the legal landscape. We know that as the business scales, managing legal risk is no longer just a nice to have, it's a very critical component of growth. That's why we're joined today by Gifty Okonkwo, Senior Legal Counsel at Xero UK and the winner of the In-House Rising Star in 2023 at the British Legal Awards. We'll be talking about how a company in the accounting tech space effectively manages legal risk, from protecting intellectual property to navigating data privacy regulations. And for those of you considering a career in law, we'll also be getting a unique look at part of the legal profession that many young entrants may not consider: the crucial role of in-house counsel in the tech world. So whether you're a business owner, an accountant, or a future lawyer, get ready to gain a new perspective on the intersection of law, business, and technology. Gifty, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me. What a brilliant intro. Wow. I'm like, ooh, that was great.
I really hope that gets the people excited to hear what you have to say today. So I guess for starters, as we typically do when we have these podcasts, I'm going to ask you some questions. First of all, what is something that might surprise people about you?
Ooh, I feel like it's that I'm kind of into DIY. Now, I have to be clear, I'm very, very much a beginner. But recently I managed to mount 2 guitars onto the wall. Like, I got a little drill and I drilled it in and screwed it in. And I'm really, really keen to learn a little bit more so I can do some fun stuff and hopefully not blow my house up.
So a bit of a guitar player, are you?
Not me. They're my husband's guitars. I'm just the DIY gal.
Love it. Love it. Love to hear it. Okay. And then what do you think would surprise 20-year-olds like your 20-year-old self about the work that you do every day?
I don't think 20-year-old Gifty would be surprised that she's a lawyer. I've been working to that for some time. So I don't think that would shock her. I think the biggest thing that would surprise her is what I now wear to work. So I wear jeans most days. And I think 20-year-old Gifty would be kind of clutching her pearls thinking you should be in a suit, you should have a blazer, it should be ironed. I haven't touched an iron in years.
Love that. I love that. Well, perfect. So I guess getting into things, and for those of us joining who are maybe looking for an introduction into your role or are interested in how similar legal roles might impact companies in the tech space, can you please just share how legal strategy can be used as a foundation for growth instead of just red tape for scaling a business?
Yeah, this is a great question. I feel like a lot of people see lawyers as no people, or worse, slow down people. And yeah, that's a really unfortunate stereotype, and I understand how it's come about. But I think the truth is, from my perspective, the purpose of an in-house lawyer especially is to keep you moving at the pace you want to move. So to look into the future, see some potential speed bumps and solve them for you earlier on, so that when you're really running at pace, you've got the wind in your hair and you're enjoying yourself. It's not a sneaky litigation claim or a contractual dispute or a regulator that is slowing you down. So I see myself as a facilitator, someone to help you keep moving when you want to move.
Amazing. So I guess the next question that I'd have in that same regard is, what are some key legal areas that a company should focus on as they prepare to expand, or if they're preparing to make a sale?
Now, I know people hate to hear this, Wens, but the truth is, it depends. I know lawyers say that a lot, but it does depend. It really depends. Wait, let me land. It really depends on what it is your business is doing, what your product or service is, and what your plans are, how large it is. But if I had to give you a general overview of the key legal areas to pay attention to, I'd start out with 3 buckets. One, ownership. So how is your company being owned? You want that to be really clear if you're thinking about scaling or selling. So How many shareholders do you have? Do you have the right type of company? So I think about ownership as one. You don't really need too much legal input for that. If you're a relatively small business, you can go ahead and probably work that out yourself. And then the second bucket I would look at is, how is money coming in? How is money coming into the business? And what I mean by that from a legal perspective is it really clear for my customer or my client what they're getting, when they're getting it, how much they're paying, and when they need to pay? If you can hit those 4 questions in whatever manner that looks like, so maybe that's an email, maybe it's a terms of use, maybe it is a full contract, however that looks, if you can hit that clarity when money is coming in, then you can avoid a lot of problems later down the line when people are complaining about things. Exactly. And then the third bucket I would look at is a little bit more sophisticated. It's avoiding money going out. So there's going to be some things as you grow and scale that you're going to just have to keep an eye on to comply with the laws in your region. And the biggest ones to think about, I'd say, are data protection. So you're looking at your privacy policy or your privacy notice. If you're creating something really different and sexy, I would think about IP, so intellectual property, how you protect your beautiful, unique design. And then there's a whole bucket of other smaller things, employment, regulatory, etc. But these days, there's not going to be any company that can avoid thinking about AI. So that's the third thing I would look at, really thinking about how that's going to work for you.
Amazing. I mean, just based off those answers alone, I think the role of in-house legal counsel sounds like one that you can't really run away from, particularly in the tech space. And I guess on that same trend of tech and AI, because, this is a buzzword that loads of people listening will want to understand in the context of the work that you do, could you possibly summarize how the rise of AI could pose a new legal risk or maybe a legal opportunity for the business? And follow up, what is one practical step a company should take to try and address either of those two things?
Yeah, sure. So first things first, opportunity. That's a really easy question because the opportunities are endless. The legal opportunities and the opportunities for business, increase in speed, increase in knowledge, upskilling. I can't even go any further into that other than, it's 100% a massive opportunity in all sense, in all senses. And then I guess linked to that, the biggest risk, therefore, is not using AI, in my view. It's everywhere for a reason. It's doing things at a fraction of the cost and taking a fraction of the time. So I think the biggest risk is actually being too cautious and trying to avoid it completely. I'm not sure how that would work going forward. But let's say we are now using it. What are the risks that we need to pay attention to? And I think the biggest one really is what happens when your AI tool has gotten it wrong. So it has happened to us all occasionally. We ask a question, and what comes back we know is incorrect.
Yeah.
So in those situations, there is a handful of cases coming out now where, for example, an airline had a chatbot that used AI to answer customers' questions. It told customer, you can get a discount after you've flown. No problems, just write back to us. It's not an issue. And that wasn't true. And the airline got sued. They tried to say, it's not us, it was our chatbot, it's just AI, it's its own thing. But the court wasn't having any of it. They're like, no, it's your AI. So if your AI says something, provides information to a customer that's incorrect, I think it would be safe to say or to assume that that's something that's on you. So the biggest risk would be there that your AI has given a customer or client incorrect information. How do you then mitigate that? Do you include warnings around the AI tool? Just double check this, check for your specific circumstances. Do you try and restrict what AI can do? So what questions it can answer? That's another way to mitigate that risk. And I think ultimately you need to be thinking about this before you start jumping into AI, just how you're using it, what data you're putting into it, what it can answer and how it answers.
Nice. And I just think, particularly on the topic of AI, it's a good idea to stay dynamic because, like you say, you go into it with one point of view and this is how I want it to work and this is what outcomes I'm expecting. And then, the outcomes might be different. So again, I've taken this onto my own perspective. Staying dynamic seems like it might be a good idea when incorporating these, particularly from a legal sense.
Absolutely.
So I guess while we're speaking about your role as in-house legal counsel, from my perspective, it seems very, very far from just red tape. So I guess with that in mind, what would you say is the biggest misconception for aspiring lawyers who might have this in their minds as a career path?
Yeah, I feel like what we see about lawyers, in the media is courtrooms. So people slamming hands on desks and, swearing on Bibles, wigs, perhaps if you're based in the UK. Everything's very dramatic. It's very salacious. I genuinely believe the biggest misconception is that we are always just constantly like "Wah," all the time. I actually think my role is very collaborative, or at least that's how I see it. I want this document, this contract to work for Xero, but also for whoever I'm partnering with. It has to make sense for both of us. So
Yeah.
it's more of a collaboration than a loggerheads. Obviously, I can go if I need to. Like we can get conflict if that's necessary, but personally, I try to avoid.
Nice. I love that. I mean, from my perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, the idea of suits, Harvey Specter, walking into a courtroom, showing up and getting the court case done is this perspective that we have. So I'm glad that you've shared a bit of the real world side of things. That's great for those listening and for myself as well. Awesome. So as a quick aside, let's just hear from today's sponsors.
This podcast is brought to you by Sift Analytics. Sift Analytics is an interactive and collaborative financial reporting tool that helps you generate beautiful reports, forecasts, and consolidations in just a few clicks. Sift helps you increase revenue, reduce costs, save time, and look professional. It is also enhanced by AI-powered insights that help you go from data to decisions in no time. Want to find out more? Visit our website at siftanalytics.com to start a 14-day free trial today.
Pivoting then, for those young professionals that will be interested, I hear that you run an internship scheme for junior lawyers. So my question to you is, what's the one skill or mindset that can make the biggest difference in thriving as a junior employee in a professional environment?
Yeah, you've done your research, Wens. Yes, I do. I run an internship scheme for undergraduate students looking for a career in law. So I tend to see a lot of people around the start of their legal careers. And my role, as I see it, is to help mentor them, to prepare them for a career in the legal world. And I have seen a lot of things, actually. I genuinely wish I could go back in time and just whisper a few things to myself. Honestly, if you took me back now, I would absolutely smash it. I'd be an amazing boy. But the things that I tend to say most frequently are, number one, nail the basics, just the very basic things. Just be on time, arrive calm, comfortable, prepared, be switched on, be engaged, be responsive. So generally, the basics can get you so far. And then in answer to your question, the one skill I would say, or the one mindset I would try to adopt is to try and get ahead of my supervisor. So, for example, let's say you've got a client meeting, you're off to go and see the client. Can you work out where that client is based? You almost definitely can. You know the client's name. Guess where their offices are. Can you work out how to get there? Just in case your supervisor doesn't know, they probably do. Wouldn't it be great if you already did? And from a very specific legal perspective, let's say your supervisor is giving you a task. Please go and research this area of law for client. Once you've done the research, what's the next step? It's almost definitely to write an email or a note for the client. Just get started on it. So when you go back to your supervisor, you can say, and I just had a go at starting off this email. So you just try and get ahead of them. And it's the basic ways to get ahead of them. You might not be an expert in law from day one. That's fine. That's not expected. But if you can be organized and try and be one step ahead, you'll be absolutely flying.
Amazing. And I guess in that same vein, you've given a really, really nice introduction to some of the basics which one can consider. But what are, in your opinion, the top 2 or 3 unspoken rules of the workplace that, younger employees often don't know until they've already made a mistake?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I think there's 2 I want to say. The first is you kind of need to transition from a student mindset to a contributor mindset. So when you're at university, you kind of tend to sit in a lecture, you take in information, you write out an essay, but it's all really for you. So you're a student, you're there to learn. When you move into the workplace, my feeling is that you're not just there to learn, you're also now there to contribute. So you need to shift the way you're thinking as somebody who's sitting back and absorbing to somebody who's actively contributing. And that contribution doesn't mean you need to be an expert in your field in day one. It's just somebody who's helping to move projects along. So I'd think of yourself more as a contributor.
Mhm.
And then the second tip I have is to advocate for yourself. Learn how to advocate for yourself. So this one took me so long to work out. But in the legal profession, progression is very linear. It's done by year. So you're a 1 year, then you're a 2 year, and it's pretty much automatic until you hit partner. It outside of that demographic, outside of that very niche world, you kind of tend to need to advocate for yourself a bit more. So you need to be talking about what you're doing. You need to be sharing knowledge. You need to be asking for the pay rise, perhaps, or asking for the promotion, and knowing how to do that, backing up, I've done this amazing project. I'm really enjoying it. I've created this value. I see my salary, my remuneration package ideally be looking something like this. It is not easy. It's not easy. I absolutely hate it, to be honest with you, but needs must.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learn early.
Love that. And I guess being a contributor, advocating for yourself, it's elements which might not come so easy to people first entering the working world. With that, there's going to come some feedback from the higher ups, which, occasionally can be tough. And so I guess my question to you is, how can younger employees learn to receive and act on feedback in a way that accelerates their growth?
Some people love feedback. Do you like feedback wins?
I do like feedback. I think it's important. Sometimes it's unpleasant, like I say, but it's important.
I completely agree. I love feedback because I like to know where I stand. If I've made a mistake, I'd love to know that as soon as possible so I can rectify it. I just don't want to be in a situation where I'm consistently making an error. So I like feedback.
Yeah.
That being said, that doesn't mean it's always easy. Sometimes you can get some feedback that's pretty tough. So when that happens to me, I try and one of my friends recently spoke on a panel about feedback, and she said, take feedback seriously, but not personally. So I try and adopt that mindset. Okay, you've given me some information. You're not actually saying anything about me as a person, but I'm going to take it seriously. And then as soon as I've adopted that mindset and I'm a bit less salty, I will try and implement that feedback immediately. I'll try for there to be no lag time between the feedback being given and the next task when I can show I'm implementing it.
Yeah.
And then I can work it out for me. Maybe that feedback wasn't quite right, but at least I've tried and I've shown that person that I've heard what they're saying.
Amazing. And then I guess while we're on this topic of sort of young professionals first entering the working world, particularly for people of our generation, the assumption might be that, young staff are digital natives, so to speak. So, having had this experience yourself, first of all, does being comfortable with social media as we are really mean that young professionals are ready for, workplace communication or workplace tech tools, in your opinion or your experience?
The answer to that for me is 100% yes. They're ready. they've been using technology for more of their life than I was, and I'm not that old.
Yeah.
So yes, I'd say that they're more technologically advanced. And whilst maybe they spend a lot of time on TikTok, they have been using technology at school during exams. They're not handwriting exams anymore, they're typing them. So they're just more digitally fluent and they know more. And I think that's absolutely brilliant and something that they should lean into. What they might be missing is the non-technological side of communicating within the workplace. So
Yeah.
how do you provide feedback? That's not easy. That's a skill that some people have to learn. So I would say on the technological side, absolutely fine. You're not going to have problems if you're a young person listen to this. I would work more on the soft skills side. So how you communicate with people and manage people and manage your manager as well.
Mm, mm. I mean, I really, really hope that there's some good takeaways that people have sort of taken from what you've provided today. I know I have, although I'm not in this legal space, just based off the conversation we've had, I think there's plenty which I can incorporate into my own position. So, I mean, I appreciate that. Before we close off, we do typically have a rapid fire section of our podcast. And so, don't think too much. We're going to make this quick. First thing that pops into your head when I ask you, what's one piece of software that you can't live without? No saying Xero, no saying Sift. We don't self-promote you.
Can I say ChatGPT?
Of course.
Okay. That is 100% ChatGPT. Yeah. I love
He
that
hasn't.
tool.
I mean, I'm sure most people listening to this today will use it. If not every day, then at least on a weekly basis. So that's a great answer. Then, which I would love to hear from you, what's the best book you've read recently, or what's the best podcast you've listened to recently?
So the best book I've read recently is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a really short, really digestible book, which gives practical insights in how to break bad habits and create good habits. Strongly recommended by me. And I'm going to give you a podcast as well. It is the same as I'm sure a lot of other people have said. It is Diary of a CEO. I absolutely love that podcast. Listen to every episode.
Can't go wrong with Diary of a CEO, can you?
No, I buy everything he tells me to buy. I'm such a
I love that. Then if you could give one piece of legal advice to a scaling organization, what would it be?
I think it would be, as a lawyer, I would say think repeat, think automate. Any document you can do, make it a one size fits all, if at all possible. Make it applicable to everybody and make it automated. Use the tools that are available to make sure that that document just gets reviewed and signed quickly. So you're not bogged down, waiting time. You're just making sales.
Love that. And finally, if there's one thing that you want listeners, whether they be business owners or aspiring legal professionals, to take away from today's episode, what would it be?
I would say that lawyers are one of your best tools. They are not the thorn in your side. They're the person that's riding with you into battle and handing you your spear and your shield. They're not the person who's getting in your way and stopping you mid-gallop. That's what I'd say.
That's a great analogy as well. Gifty, thank you so much for joining us today. I think really, really informative, and I hope, like I said, business owners and aspiring legal professionals alike take away loads from what you've had to say. And from us personally, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast. Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now. And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast. That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.